Welcome to Alter. I'm your host, Nicole Meline. This podcast explores the practice of transformation as a conversation between hustle and flow. Altering, changing, growing, becoming, and altering, offering, surrendering, opening to divine conspiracy. It's the dance of the leader, athlete, artist, entrepreneur, committed not just to optimal expression, but to exceptional being. So here are adventures in alignment and conspiracy, awake to all the grit, dirt, and complexity of our world, alert to the graces that come alongside the struggle, the hustle, a cocktail of soul food, new rhythms, and street wisdom, encouragement, an infusion of courage for the moments you need it most. I'm your host, Nicole Meline. Let's alter together. It is a whole new world. I'm reporting live from New York City, an epicenter of the coronavirus, from my apartment in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of the Alter podcast and the 36th episode, and I am so crazy grateful for you, for the incredible notes and messages you've sent, and mostly for the ratings and reviews you've left in iTunes. Hey, while you're listening, if you haven't yet, could you leave one right now? We're listening to the song Human by Judah and the Lion. And you can feel it, right? That sense of crescendo, which is always a mix of ascent and explosion, rising and breaking apart. We're here in the kind of moment we might have had nightmares about. Crisis. It shows us how deep or how shallow our toolboxes are. This is the kind of moment we train for. Spiritually, physically, mentally, courageously. The way we show up this moment will shape our individual and collective future momentously. Momentous. A moment of weight. A moment with its own momentum. I've taken some time to craft this podcast episode because I'm trying to practice, as I encourage all of us, responding rather than reacting. Responding requires integration of shifts and changes. It's a revision of the course that keeps focus on our values and vision and mission that doesn't change when the path toward it does. Fixed goals, flexible means, or as we talk about so much together in this podcast, this blend of hustle and flow. And by the way, we can practice urgent action out of responsiveness rather than reaction. The other reason it's taken me a while to craft this episode is I've been pouring my focus and love and service into HIIT, the 28-day wellness journey I launched March 15th. As coronavirus started to unfold, I, along with so many other business leaders, feared just the worst possible timing to bring anything into the world. But one of the things we've been exploring and experimenting with in this podcast and in HIIT is that when we are aligned with our highest intentions, the universe conspires to support us. I say something like that so soberly because this moment is not for pie in the sky, Pollyanna perspective on anything. It's a moment for clear-eyed, wise solidarity and service, which is another way of saying aligning with our highest intentions. HIIT is one of the creations of my highest intention, and sure enough, the community that has gathered around it has felt like it's exactly what we needed at this moment in this crisis we couldn't have imagined. So one thing I want to encourage you in right now is that you have exactly the gifts and vision and creativity your own heart and your people need. As usual, really our only job is to be in alignment with Spirit, with our hearts, and listen so well. It's turned out in Way-T we've been having this ongoing conversation around grace. What is it, and how do we recognize it, and how do we think about it, especially in a time like this? And how do we think about it in a way that's not reductive, that's not disrespectful to the gravity of the tragedy that we're seeing all around us? Just this last week, I remembered U2's masterpiece of a song, Grace, which reflects this kind of complex, mature wonder at the and also that comes alongside. The gift, the extra, the unexpected goodness that also comes alongside of legit loss and tragedy and confusion. And also grace. Today, I want to share the principles that I'm living out of in this unprecedented time and some tips to make the best of this. That's right. I said, make the best of this. I'm hesitant even to say those words because so many are suffering so intensely right now. And I want to be with them in solidarity and support. And I want to honor the scale of the suffering. At this point, we don't know or can't yet wrap our heads around the extent to which this pandemic is changing our world. Every day, there's some mind-blowing change or update or prediction. The first headline I saw this morning reported on pop-up morgues being constructed in public spaces in Manhattan in preparation. So what I'm sharing today is soberly integrating this kind of unimaginable shift. 2 words that are really helping me to feel most human and hopeful. You ready? And also. Here's the most extreme. Pop-up morgues. And also a note that was nailed to a neighborhood tree that says, if you are elderly or alone and need help, here is my email. I will help you in any way I can. And also, NASA images from space showing the skies clearer than we've ever seen them. More birdsong. The canals of Venice clear enough to see schools of fish swimming through. Families reconnecting. Massive dance parties on Zoom. Quarantine memes and jokes and intimate living room concerts that are saving all of our lives. All the ways grace and humor, which are ultimately the same thing, invades and comes alongside tragedy. And also grace. We are an inexhaustible, meaning-making, comedy-making, hope-generating species. And also. And while it's really important to take time to fall apart, like regularly, at least once a day, to recognize and metabolize the way our world has fallen apart, to give yourself time for a good old meltdown, it's also important to recognize the ways we're falling together. Or more accurately, rising together. My spectacular mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at age 62, and it was as devastating and undignified and unfair and infuriating as you would imagine. And at the same time, and also, she grew in so much grace and sweetness and childlike as opposed to childish. It was ridiculous. And it was also ridiculous. So much of the time, all you could do was laugh or laugh cry. You know what I'm talking about. At the falling apart. She became hilarious, funnier than she'd ever been, and somehow wittier, playing jokes on us through all of it. And also, as usual, music's been saving me. And I've had this song on repeat the last couple weeks, Over the Rhine's Only God Can Save Us Now, about the comedy of the nursing home where the singer Karen Bernquist's mom spent decades after a stroke. No more tragic of a place, and no more hilarious of a place.
Only God can save us now. Jeans is fuzzy, wuzzy, fuzzy, wuzzy, was a bear. Miss Cleve sings hallelujah from the choir in her chair. Behind his busy apron, remains naked, standing proud. Only God can save us now.
And also grace. Recognizing the moments of gift that are showing up in the midst of this craziness. You might start a big list of them on the fridge or a wall in your home. Okay, here's how we make the best of this. 10 principles for response rather than reaction to this new world we're living in. Number 1, maximize your well-being. You know the example of putting your own air mask on first, right? Over the last few weeks, the 3 priorities that have emerged for me on a daily basis are nourish, create, serve. How are you nourishing yourself? Very basically, how are you eating? We've been focusing on this together in HIIT. Nutrient-dense foods that are going to energize you rather than deplete you, and becoming aware of when you're eating out of boredom or sadness, or feeding food to emotions that actually need to be honored and moved through and maybe cleared or given space to, listened to. And this is a mantra I want to offer you. Nourish your future self. So here's your mantra. I nourish my future. I nourish my future. That's a vision that I want to invite you to return to over and over again throughout your day. And especially as you start to feel anxiety or uncertainty, I want you to envision yourself 3 months from now. And helpfully, assume that your current situation is not going to change. Your current work situation or dwindling work situation, assume that that's not going to change. Assume that the same kind of temptations toward anxiety and fear are all there, okay? 3 months from now, envision yourself thriving amidst all of that. Envisioning your 3 month from now self. What does she need? What does he need? What do they need to thrive? How do you need to be sleeping? How do you need to be nourishing yourself? How do you need to be meditating? How do you need to grow in all of these areas of wellness? How can you support the 3 month from now you? How are you going to feed her? How are you going to soothe him? How can you bring humor and comedy and lightness and joy into all of the struggle? By this point, we're learning that this crisis we're in the midst of is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not going to resolve itself tomorrow. One of the tools that I've created that has been so useful, foundational for me, and not just staying sane through the last few weeks as all the rugs have been pulled, but cultivating joy and vision and hope for the future and creativity is the Envision Planner that I created and launched just a few months ago. It is undated, so you can begin it at any time. And interestingly enough, it is a 90-day planner. So it's a 3 month planner because that length of time is far enough out. First of all, it's the length of a season, but that length of time is far enough out that real transformation can be made. We can change massively. We can change our bodies. We can change our minds. We can change our spirits. We can change our creative practices. massively in 90 days. So I'm going to share with you at the end of this episode a gift, including the Envision Planner that I'm excited to offer for all of us. But I encourage you to sketch out this vision of yourself 3 months from now, thriving, joyful, maximally creative, maximally generous, and nourish her, nourish him, nourish them with every choice that you're making. So secondly, you will find your joy in this season through creation, through creativity, and through service. This is the time. This is the time to get creative, and this is the time to serve. So after you're nourishing yourself well, how can you create right now? How can you become creative? How can you honor your own creative energy and remember it? Remember that you have an imagination to create a way out of whatever situation that you're in right now, whatever challenging situation that you're in right now. And this last priority of service, how can you be of service? How can you offer some of your gifts right now to the world in service? Okay, number 3, prioritize routine, but embrace revolution. We're living in a whole new world. So, my people, guess what? Why not live in a whole new world? When all the rugs have been pulled, it's easier to establish new practices and habits, especially in relationship to fitness and physical and spiritual wellness. All the ways that your life looks different now than it did a few weeks ago, maybe in your proximity to your family members, maybe in a radical need for generative creativity in your life and in your business. Let all of those be invitations to change and to grow and to start new practices and habits in the ways that you kind of know that you've gotten a little stale, the ways that aren't serving you. So what I mean by prioritize routine but embrace revolution is recognize the opportunities that this whole new set of rules we're all playing by right now is affording you, but also honor the rituals and the routines that are the foundation of your wellness and start new ones. This is the time to establish new ones. Number 4, focus on possibility, not limitation. My friends, I want you to ask this question when you're facing any kind of change that is difficult and challenging and frustrating. What does this make possible? What does this make possible? There are so many things that this circumstance makes impossible. Connecting with our friends and our community in the ways that we love to and the ways that are so life-giving. Versions of our businesses that we loved and might have been thriving and that we had built huge infrastructures around. Our economy moving across the world. The list of impossibilities is so long, and that needs to be honored. The heartbreak of that needs to be honored. But let your heart whisper when you're looking at all of it and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? What does this make possible? What does this turn of events make possible? Another way of thinking about that is, where's the opportunity here? All right, so the ways that I was used to meeting needs, whether in business or in family or relationship or whatever, might have been turned on their heads, might be impossibilities right now. But where's their opportunity? Is there a service that you've never offered before that you might want to experiment with offering? What does this make possible in this new world? What's needed? How can I step in? How can I create? And how can I serve? Number 4, meditation. This is the time to develop or deepen a meditation practice. This is such an important thing to know about meditation. It's additive, meaning you might try meditating for 10 minutes a day for 7 days and feel nothing, and just feel like every time that you try, those 10 minutes are frustrating and boring, and you feel like it's a waste of time, and you're just distracted, and you have no idea, you're nowhere near any kind of a Kundalini Shakti experience of bliss. It just seems like a waste of time. And then 2 weeks later, all of a sudden you've stopped biting your nails. all of a sudden you're having fewer anxiety attacks. All of a sudden that habit that you haven't been able to kick is starting to melt away. All of a sudden the kind of mindless eating that you've been doing more out of drug than medicine, you're more mindful of, you're more attentive to, and the quality of your attention is sharpening and changing. Meditation is one of those practices that takes a while to really bear fruit. We can't see that the seeds of it have been planted in our psyche. There are so many studies that have taken images of a human brain even weeks after beginning a meditation practice, or a month, or most dramatically a year or several years after meditating, even looking at monks, who spend lifetimes deepening a meditation practice. And the changes in the brain are visible. The changes in white matter, in gray matter, but all of that takes time. So don't expect necessarily to feel like it's this revolutionary practice right off the bat. Meditation is like mental and spiritual flossing. In the same way you floss your teeth at the end of the day, resetting, deep listening to what you're thinking, to what you're feeling, to exactly what thoughts are on repeat through your brain the whole entire day. I encourage you to craft a daily mantra, a point of focus that you develop in a morning meditation. It can be 5 minutes of breathing that you can come back to throughout the day. Write it down. This is a cornerstone of the Envision Planner. On every daily page is a space for a mantra, and it's like an anchor that you can come back to, a lifeline that you can come back to over the course of your day. We talked about having those 3 priorities of nourish, create, and serve, right? One of the ways I'm serving right now out of my training and gifts is starting tomorrow, I'm going to offer a short daily altar podcast meditation. It'll run for probably 7 days. We'll see if it goes beyond that. But just to jumpstart your morning practice, just to give you 5 minutes of a point of focus that you can breathe into. And this can be as simple as a slower, deeper inhale. Let's try it together. Maybe hands on your heart. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale longer. We're going to keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling. Inhale, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 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 exhale. How amazing that you have this technology in your own body. The simplicity of your breath to still your thoughts, to still your body, and to signal to your body that at least in this moment, you are safe, you are held. On the subject of meditation, one thought I want to invite you into is to try on what monasticism looks like for you. So weirdly, right now, all of us are kind of being forced into a type of monasticism, a type of solitude and isolation. And while for most of us it's not chosen, I just want to remind all of us that retreat and solitude and isolation and a time to integrate and meditate and pray and reflect has been the cornerstone of just about every spiritual tradition for all time. Beautiful things are being said right now about the fact that the whole world is being put on retreat. The whole world is being called into a kind of monastery. There's a beautiful tradition of thought that I love, particularly in Eastern Christian spirituality, that the monastics of the world, the monks and nuns of the world, are what hold the world together. The prayers, the meditations, the intentions of these humans who have intentionally decided to retreat, to live a life of prayer, to live a life of meditation, are holding space for the rest of the world. Their prayers are what is holding peace between nations. Their prayers are a kind of immunity for the entire world. It's a pretty stunning thought. Even more stunning is this realization that we're all being called to this. So, what does your monastery look like? What does your monasticism look like? You now have opportunity for it. And this might be incredibly painful and anxiety producing and boring. And it can be all of those things and also a time for you to establish your version of a monastic practice that could just be as simple as beginning or deepening a daily meditation practice. At this point in the world, I think that meditation is a kind of civic duty. This calm that we can cultivate, not just for ourselves, but a collective calm that can keep us from a collective panic, that can call us into response rather than reaction, is maybe the most powerful technology and immunology we need to face this pandemic. Speaking of integration and your own monastic practices of mindfulness, principle number 6, journal. People, these are momentous times. Integrating them, making a record of how you are coming through this is so valuable. You and your family will remember this season and what you did with it for the rest of your life. Simply having a journaling practice at the beginning or the end of the day where you just mark, how is this season developing? How has it imprinted your life today? What happened that really struck you? What happened that blew your mind, more likely, right? What headlines really stirred you? What fears are being stirred up? Listen to those fears. Listen to your discomfort. Honor your discomfort, because in it is the story of who you are and who you are becoming. In it is the story of what you care about most, what deserves the highest priority in your life. And that is the kind of monumental growth and shifting that we can cultivate during the season because of these remarkable times. So keep a journal of this time. Again, even if it is so simple, you're just noting what happened today. What did you feel? How did it affect you? And here's the gold. How are you responding? Not reacting, but responding. Because all of our rhythms are disrupted right now. We are collectively, most of us, in the experience of the days kind of blurring together. March has felt like the longest year of our lives, right? And journaling can be this way of not letting any of it be lost on you, in you. Don't let it be lost in you. When I created the Envision Planner, it was really just out of a desire to think more creatively about how my days are passing and how I'm being intentional about moving through time, moving through one day to the other. So again, if that's a tool that feels like it would serve and inspire you and give you this anchor right now, I'm so grateful to be able to offer it to support you. Principle number 7, make a manifesto. That might seem like a surprise. Most of us in this time are feeling pretty powerless. But a manifesto is a point of focus to help you remember who you are and what you are about. Your business right now might have evaporated. Your way of being in the world, your way of defining yourself, may be in the process of dismantling. But the core of who you are, that creative core of who you are that cannot be dismantled, that cannot melt away, that cannot be affected or diminished by the economy or even by your own health, that core essence of who you are, that remains. So what is it? What are your values? Who are you? What are your priorities? What are you about? I really encourage you to write a few sentences of mission statement, vision statement for this time right now. A couple Alter episodes ago, I did an episode on this. What's your manifesto? A couple episodes actually, to help you explore this process of writing a mission statement, a seasonal mission statement. And who knew? I feel like it's never been more important to have something like this to keep in focus, as we're all in a process right now of reinvention. We're all in a process of reinvention. Our society is in a process of reinvention. Certainly our businesses, our families, our relationships, our ways of being are in a process of reinvention and reimagination. So get clear on what's at your essence. And then how can it be best expressed? What form can it take in this season? So I encourage you to do this for yourself. And I really encourage you, if you live with your family, to do it also as a family unit. What is our manifesto? What are we about? What is our family mission statement? And during this time, what are the priorities that we're going to hold to? We're going to keep in focus. That might be about the way that we treat each other. That might be about certain tasks that we're going to keep important, certain practices that we're going to keep engaging in. Define that. Get clear on that. That is in your power to do, and it is going to be an anchor to all of us in this time. Number 8, this is fun. Make a list of all the projects you've been wanting to do. What are all the things that you have been putting off? All the things that have been forming a kind of low-grade mental clutter, like you got to do that thing. If you could just do this thing, it would help you think more clearly. I say this, and I know that this does not apply to those of us who are working on the front lines of this crisis. And so first of all, I want to encourage us to put at the top of that list, how can we serve and how can we support those in our community who are working overtime right now? Can you be of service to those in your community that are carrying most of this on their shoulders? And secondly, again, what are the projects that you have been wanting to do? How can you use this time to get clear? Not just in your mind, through meditation, through prayer, not just in your creations, through a manifesto, a vision statement, through answering the question of how can you become creative right now, but how can you clear out closets, pantries, your computer, your living space? What are the projects that would actually give you a lot of satisfaction to get done, a real sense of accomplishment? And this is so true. Clean space, clear mind. Number 9 and number 10 are related, and they are the heart and soul of what is giving me joy and strength in this time. In short, move to be moved. Become intentional about moving your body. I want to talk about this in 2 different senses. So, tip number 9 is move on the hour. Every hour, hourly, stand up and move. Give yourself a new challenge every single day. Today, what are you going to do on the hour? 15 squats, 15 jumping jacks, maybe just a stretch. Maybe you're going to go through one sun salutation every hour. My favorite form of this is just pop-up dance parties on the hour. Every hour, at least 1 minute, but it usually becomes a whole song. Just dance. Obviously, this is important because many of us are much more sedentary. The gyms are closed. Our ways of moving have changed. But moving briefly, even if all you can do because of energy levels, because of your schedule, because of whatever else, is just move once an hour, just stand up, walk around the house, breathe deeply. Here's why this is important. And this gets into a longer movement practice during the day as well. Our brains right now are in crisis mode. Mostly, our nervous systems are mostly in the sympathetic state. Fight or flight. Constantly being alarmed, constantly becoming anxious about this or that news that we're hearing, this or that change that we have to adapt to. And when your brain is in the sympathetic nervous state, it's telling your body to do something. It's telling your body that something needs to be done. And that can lead to a feeling of panic or an all-out panic attack. One of the most important things you can do when you feel any of that set in is shake your body. Shake your body. I know, it's so weird and it's so simple. Shake your body. It activates your whole nervous system and it does something with your whole body, which tells your brain, oh, okay, she's doing something. Calm down. She's doing something about this. Even if all you're doing is shaking, the technical term for this is discharging the mobilization tendency. So your brain is saying, you need to mobilize, you need to mobilize, you need to mobilize. So mobilize. It's also going to deepen your breath. It's also going to spike your heart rate. All of this is good for your circulatory system. All of this is obviously good for your metabolism. But moving throughout the day, and if you can, moving with joy, or giving your body the opportunity to have a meltdown if you need to. The number of times that I've started to dance and wound up crying and been surprised by it and realized, oh, that was in there. That needed to move through. That was what was causing creative block, low energy. That needed to move through. Give your body a chance to move through the feelings. Don't feed the feelings with that third cookie, with that third glass of wine. That's not going to help. The feelings need to move through. The feelings need to be felt and to move through. So lastly, number 10, and if you're part of my family, this is core to who we are. Move to be moved. So give yourself a time, if you possibly can, every day, at least 30 minutes to move like yourself, to move back into yourself. All of our ways of moving right now have, for the most part, also been changed. We're all facing constraints. Maybe the gym is closed. Maybe the pool is closed. Maybe you're not even allowed to go outside. One of the gifts for me of this crazy season that none of us could have saw coming is that I've upped my game in filming in my own home studio, and I am just finding so much joy in it, just creating church for you. Indoor cycling workouts and work-ins, hour-long warrior rides, arm candy rides, which is a mix of upper body and hardcore intervals, altar movement practice. You've heard me talk about this, and for the most part, I've only been leading this on retreats, but now it's just been to create this for you for your own home. So you can find out all about this at alteredtogether.nicolemeline.com. And all of these workouts, all of these movement practices are designed to move through the stuff that you're feeling, to harvest it for strength and joy and creativity, to honor it, to move through it, to work through it, to put it to work for us so that we can make the best of it. Move through. Because my friends, I've got really good news for us. There's no way out. There's no magic pill. The only way out is through, which means that we are going to come through clearer on who we are and our priorities, stronger, more creative because we have to be, more generous because we have to be, and more joyful in service and in connection. This cover by Johnny Swim has been another deep comfort to me this past week. Stand your ground. Stand on who you are. Stand with Spirit. Conspire with Spirit. Align with Spirit. Stand in connection and in solidarity. Stand in service.
There ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand.
I remember when I heard this song by Pierce Pettis a few years ago. He is a master songwriter. Really encourage you to dive into his music right now. It is good medicine. This song is another beautiful way of putting this idea of and also into words.
This time you say you're cured, you think, but you're not sure what of. Life is a mystery we don't have time to solve. Transcendental meditation, accidental medication. A lot of things could sure screw up your brain. Let me give you something for the pain.
Let me give you something for the pain. We don't want to explain it away. We want to honor pain and suffering and sadness and loss for what it is, and also create alongside it. Offer the medicine of creativity alongside it.
Guns to protect themselves from rape. Oh, let me give you something for the pain.
I've also been thinking a lot about the story in scripture of Esther, this woman who emerged as a leader at a time when that just didn't happen. But her giftedness as a leader could not be denied. And as she's losing heart, she's encouraged with this phrase, For you were made for such a time as this. For you were made for such a time as this. My friends, I encourage you to live in that same possibility. Become makers. Make our way, create our way through as though we were made for such a time as this. As I've thought about how I can serve and create through this time, I'm excited to offer a few things. First, home workouts and work-ins at altertogether.nicolemeline.com. There's a free 3-day trial so you can get a sense of it and a Facebook community around it. And when you join, you'll also become part of the Altar Book Club, where we're reading and discussing soul fortifying reads like April's selection, Glennon Doyle's new book, Untamed, which is amazing. So, altertogether.nicolemeline.com. And if you order an Envision planner at nicolemeline.com for the next 2 weeks until Easter, I'm offering 50% off membership at Altar Together. So you can just decide that these next 3 months, however our world unfolds, are going to be a time of vision, growth, and strength, both physically and spiritually. And if you'd like support, particularly in how you're nourishing yourself during this time, registration for the next round of HIIT begins on April 19th, and HIIT will begin on May 3rd. 28 days of revolutionizing your relationship to weight in an incredibly encouraging community that is just catching fire. You can find out more at nicolemeline.com/HIIT or email HIIT@nicolemeline.com. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this podcast so you can get the daily meditations beginning tomorrow, and share it with a friend or share a screenshot of it on social media to connect and encourage. Infuse with courage. I'm also on Instagram at Nicole Meline, and Altar Podcast and Movement Practice is at Altar Together. I'd love to hear what this podcast is stirring in you and how these movement practices are connecting you to your heart. As usual, the playlist for this episode and the show notes are at altertogether.com. And I've been making quite a few playlists through this season, especially one in particular for this time called You Are Held. You can find it and all the rest on my Spotify channel. Just look up Nicole Meline. So, from New York City, clear eyes, open, brave, generous hearts, creating and proceeding as though we are made for such a time as this, as we alter our hearts, our world, our future together.